Wake up, buyer payer people. It's a beautiful day. Go grab yourself another cup of joe and say hello to Jim and Michelle Rhodes on the Buy Here Pay Here morning show. Take it away, you two.
Hey, welcome, folks. Happy Wednesday. Happy Valentine's Day. We got a special guest, Jimmy Rambo, standing by, and just wanted to announce you're used to seeing Michelle here with me. She's away today. My sweetheart is on the way to the airport to pick up her son, who's returning from a short getaway. So you'll just have myself and Mr. Rambo today. Just a couple quick announcements before I bring Jimmy in. We got tomorrow, Thursday, the dealer roundup. We've got it's a virtual dealer roundup. I feel like a lot of people are, just because it's a new name. We're going to do 6 of those this year, so this will be the first of 6. And we've got 2 dealer panels. This is all virtual event, so we got 2 dealer panels to kick off the day. We're doing the first one on strategies for growth in 2024, and we've got 2 really established dealers in Dan Grosvenor out of Missouri and Nick Markosian from here in Utah will be joining us for that first session. That's at 9 a.m. kickoff. We got 9 a.m. Eastern start for this, and then the next session will be on revving up the recon or inventory pipeline. We've got dealers Edgar Rodriguez out of the Houston area, and then Melanie Goldman from the central part of Indiana will be with us on that one. Our co-moderator, by the way, for the day is dealer Nathan Syme out of Alabama. Happy to have Nathan joining us. He's just one of those guys who asks a lot of great questions. He's got franchise background, franchise management, entrepreneurship, and now 2 years in Buy Here, Pay Here. And so I'm excited to have him co-moderate with me and ask some of the great questions that Nathan's kind of known for. And so that'll be, an important event. And then tomorrow night, Thursday, we've got our V8 Group 3 meeting. So that's the group that is for newcomers. So it's not too late to get in there. If you have an interest in a seat over there, just reach out and let me know. We'll make sure at the end of the broadcast here, we get our contact information so that you can get in touch with us about that. But we're excited to have Mr. Jimmy Rambo join us today. Let me bring Jimmy in. We're going to talk about portfolio analysis today. So welcome, Jimmy. Happy to have you join us again.
Good morning.
I should let our listeners know we got a little bit of an internet lag this morning, so something's going on between me and Jimmy in South Carolina. So we're good, just a slight delay. But happy to have you here, Jimmy. And I want to make sure and talk about at the start of the broadcast here, you have got many years of experience. Tell our folks who haven't had a chance to meet you kind of what your work has been and how long you've been with Spartan and how long Spartan's been around, all the background stuff.
Okay, so I've been with Spartan for going on 7 years now in various roles between underwriting, business development, relationship management. Before that, I was in commercial banking for 15 years on all sides of it, relationship management, credit analysis, credit underwriting. Spartan's been around since 2010. We're the commercial division of American Credit Acceptance. We're a $4.5 billion indirect lender in the emerging credit space, which started in 2007. And then doing the reception.
Doggone it. I don't know if it's happening on our listener side. I have to interrupt you. Just we're getting your stream is freezing a little bit, so I'm not sure where a problem is. But
8 or 9, we saw the need to be able to provide.
I'm losing you, Jimmy. I think it's a streaming problem. It's just kind of in and out. We haven't run into this in a while, so I'm not sure what's going on there. But we'll pick back up. And I caught most of what you said there about your particular background, and then Spartan's being a subdivision sort of American Credit Acceptance. And I caught the thing I've heard you guys talk about before. I love the phrase emerging credit. Like that phrase alone says a lot to me, and it just says that you guys as an enterprise recognize that just because folks are in a tough credit spot today doesn't mean they're always going to be in that place, and so you're in a position to provide them solutions. And so they're, for the work that we're doing here today, I know that you and your company, you guys provide lines of credit to dealers, among other things. I know that you do some bulk buying. And so, for the conversation today about portfolio analysis, I know that you guys obviously have a team of underwriters when you're looking at these kind of things, and you have analysts who are able to get in and help analyze these kind of things. So for me, it was just really about helping dealers today understand the importance of some of these numbers we're going to talk about. And I just think it's a nice opportunity for us to share some ideas and some reasons that, it's so important to track some of this kind of stuff. So I brought a tool today, Jimmy, but I would just say that, I want our listeners to be able to send in a note and just, I have a tool that we created. I'm happy to share it free for those who just want to send in their email address. And this will allow us to start, helping dealers analyze, it's part of what we do in our work is do portfolio analysis. One of the first things we do when we're working with the clients, help get in there and get a framework put in place to help, at least have a way to capture the numbers and start to understand which numbers are important. And so this is part of what I'll just share on the screen now. Let me get this up so that people can start to see and understand kind of the premise of, what I wanted to have a chance to share, because, and I know this is small. I'm going to do the best I can to get that enlarged a little bit, but we're, we just basically are trying to make sure that people understand the benefits behind tracking this kind of thing. This tool is basically, you can see I've got it laid out where it starts in the month of January in this case, we'd start in January 2023 and do all 12 months of 2023. And I went ahead and added a column for 2024. And this does most of the calculations. But I think one of the things that happens, Jimmy, and when I see dealers work with this, we're trying to get down here. You can see on row 16, it does some calculations. It's basically verifying that the numbers that we put in there are tying together. And of course, one of the challenges, if a dealer who, might have 13 months worth of history, if they went back to start trying to build this now, part of the challenge we run into is DMS systems, typically can't give us a very good snapshot balance of receivables. So if a dealer hasn't captured, for example, their receivables balance back at the, close of July, it's pretty challenging to run those things, after the fact. I'm sure you see the same thing.
We do. And that's one of the pieces of advice I would give anyone kind of starting out is just to keep and track as much data or information as you can, because as you start to grow and build that portfolio, capturing that data is going to really help you in your decision making going forward. So as much as that, you can kind of start tracking while it's smaller, and as you're starting to grow, as much as you can kind of keep that, capture that, measure that, build that, it can help you going forward.
Right. And I just think it's also, could kind of help to make sure that we know that in the software side of this, that it's sometimes frustrating for us as consultants, advisors, analysts. Like, we're trying to get to this information, and look, dealers, when they're smaller, they're operating on a budget, and sometimes they choose a system that doesn't do a very thorough job here. And not everybody takes an analyst view like you and I might, but it is still important for dealers on a lot of levels to be able to capture this information, because, besides just analyzing your own performance, like just looking at your own portfolio performance and being able to start to look to underwriting and, say, gosh, our portfolio is performing poorly, we might need to relook at our underwriting or whatever the case may be. That would be step one to me, is just kind of looking at our own performance. Obviously, as we measure these things, we're also able to measure the performance of our collections team, if we're obviously collecting in-house typically. And so this is going to also be some indication of collections performance. And then that just would be step one, is measuring how are we converting the portfolio to cash. That's obviously one of our big objectives in this industry, is to take this contract and be able to convert it into cash and get the money in the bank. So this is kind of step one for me in terms of measuring. When we meet a new dealer, that's just one of the first things we do is supply this template and get as much of the back information as we can. And I just know from working with some of these DMS systems that it's more challenging with some than it is others to get to a number that is workable. I mean, when I say workable, we're trying to get to that row that I showed you down there where it does the math on the deviation here. We're just trying to get to across the year. We'd like to finish with plus or minus 1%. That's kind of what I'm targeting. And then I can, feel like we've captured most of the essential data. But I think, I just look at this and think, man, our software has got to be able to help us produce this. And some systems are doing better than others. I just think it's so important that dealers be able to get to this number. And so one of the other things that happens sometimes is that it's a tool to help identify theft or mismanagement. Sometimes it's not outright theft. It's not that anybody's putting money in their pocket, but it's like that. It's a way for us to make sure we know what our starting balance was. We capture, I call it principal activity, Jimmy, like being able to track at least all the principal that moved in and out of the portfolio across a period of time. And so this is what I think this tool can help do. And we get that to plus or minus 1%. And now we've got something we can work from in terms of, for you as a lender and bulk buyer, you would go on to some kind of deep analytics like collateral recovery rate. I know you were on the podcast before. I'll try to remember to share the link to that podcast for our listeners today, which, is kind of a different measure of analysis, what I sometimes call conversion rates, or a simplified version of what you call collateral recovery rate. So you want to kind of explain that again for our listeners, just a kind of a high level explanation?
Yeah, collateral recovery rate, just in simple terms, is for every dollar you put out, you loaned out, how much did you bring back in? It's looking at the portfolio at the beginning of the month, and you kind of take out the originations, but look at what that portfolio was at the beginning of the month and what it was at the end of the month. Say if it was $1 million at the beginning of the month and it was 900,000 in the month, that $100,000 difference, how much of that came from principal collected? How much of that came from charge-offs?
Right. And so I don't hear it as often. I know that folks in your arena also talk about loss to liquidation ratio. So you might share that one as well. How does that one?
That's actually just the inverse of the collateral recovery rate.
Okay.
That's loss to liquidation. You hear that more with a lot more with kind of larger, like either subprime lenders or securitizations. They're looking at a lot of the loss to liquidations. And that's just really the severity of the losses in there. So you're looking at, particularly the early defaults are going to really hit you on the loss to liquidation and have a negative impact on collateral recovery rate. But the loss to liquidation is essentially the inverse of the collateral recovery
rate. Side of that. So they're all kind of doing, what some people would, look to that number, might be CRR, what I'm calling conversion rates. They're all kind of measuring the same thing to figure out, essentially, if I just kind of talk about it in dealer speak, it's like, I just want to know how much of my portfolio is making it into the cash register, is like how much is making it into the bank account first and foremost, like how well are we doing at converting these contracts into cash? And so that's kind of what we begin to measure here. And now that information, once we capture all that, it helps us to arrive at some other things. And like I said, collateral recovery rate being among them. And collateral recovery rate, if we talk about that number from a bulk buying perspective, it's one of the numbers that a bulk buyer, I think, would lean on when there is history of portfolio and we're buying some sort of established portfolio. Would be among the things that would get calculated to make a determination about buying, right?
It is. It is. So, I mean, that's one example of that historical performance.
Yeah. And so, it's not always, sometimes portfolio is not seasoned long enough to have much real history. And so you guys are buying at different levels and we know that happens, but it does also affect price. The more a portfolio seasoned and the more history you can get on it, obviously it's going to help you arrive at those calculations and have a better feel for what you're buying and potentially make for a better price. But yeah, I think that's, for today, I just wanted to have a chance to share the form and make sure that our listeners know that, this would be a first step. And even if you don't have 13 months of history, we would be recommending that folks capture what they do have. And so what we're prepared to do, for our listeners is just, if they'll just send in their email address. So let me just make sure I'm going to put on the screen here for everybody, our how to contact me. So let me just put my email address. If folks will just send an email there, and let us know. Or you can also text me. I think I can put my cell number on there. You can text me your email address, and we'll get this form to you and share it in a way that we can kind of help you through, coach you through the completion of it. But it's really just, the idea is to make it available so that people can start to measure their own stuff. I just meet so many dealers, Jimmy, that don't even have this kind of history captured, and they need some help figuring out where to even capture the numbers sometimes in their system. And so this is something that, we've talked about it plenty in some prior White Hat Wednesday episodes. We've talked about that. This is one of my frustrations in our industry, is that dealers just don't have enough of this information at their fingertips. And so this is it's problematic. We're kind of working through some of it with the V8 dealer group thing, that where dealers are submitting data, and we're asking for some of this same information. And we just find that some of the systems are it's just challenging. And some of it, sometimes it's not even necessarily the software. It's just that the dealer doesn't fully understand what we're asking for and why we would need it. Right.
Well, then entering the information consistently. You may have done it 1 month and then you changed it different, how you recorded a payment. So then it's kind of finding a consistent way to enter that information too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, for today, I think we covered the parts that I would, want folks to know about, the actual spreadsheet. I think, let me make sure, I should have your contact information where people can see it. I had it. I guess I must have put it in the wrong place. Oh, here we go. Check that on the screen. Make sure I have your email address recorded correctly.
That's correct.
So, besides just being a nice guy to know and having your contact list, I would recommend you write down that email address, because when you are shopping for a line of credit, or you are looking to sell a portfolio in bulk, or just get some feedback, some advice from a guy who's got a ton of experience, then, you'd want to reach out to, most of us know you as Jimmy. I see the email address says James, and so I'm officially James too. But yeah, I think everybody knows him as Jimmy. And so find that email address, capture that email, and make sure you reach out to him if you're shopping for lines of credit. And if you need some help getting the analysis kind of lined up, then, by all means, reach out to us. This is totally free. We're just part of our White Hat thing. We're just trying to make sure that dealers have the information, and we want to be able to coach people through how to capture this information and why it really matters. And I just think when we start with some of the systems that we worked with, we did finally, by the way, I won't mention names of DMS providers, but we did finally, with one of the DMS providers just about 3 or 4 months ago, figure out which reports to get to be able to identify principal, like down to the penny. And so that's like, this is part of why I spend my days doing, is why I have a bottle of aspirin on the corner of my desk, because, we're diving into some of that kind of stuff and trying to help dealers identify all this stuff. And I just find that it baffles me that here we are in 2024, and some of this stuff is still awfully difficult for dealers to be able to have at their fingertips. And so this is part of what the drum that I'm over here beating, and just trying to, ask the DMS providers to get, and there are a lot of folks working on it. I can say that we're meeting some people out there, Jimmy, that are, they're data specialists. And, one of the challenges, of course, we have in our industry is a couple of things, but I have a lot of different DMS providers, and not all of them have their APIs available out there, for easy access. So you're kind of limited on how you can get to this information with different systems, but there are some folks working on it. And, we're obviously happy to support that mission to try to get more information into dealers' hands more readily, because as you know, it's I said it to somebody yesterday in a different context, but it's like, even if they can do it, they're busy. So dealers aren't, they're not marketing specialists. They're not data analysts, most of them. And so this stuff is a little more difficult for them. And I think even if they can get to it, sometimes it's incomplete. Sometimes it's late. It's hard to make kind of business decisions when you got late information sometimes. And so I think, most of what we're looking at here is more long range performance. And this kind of this tool is meant to really measure overall portfolio performance. So I can tell you, I've had conversations just this week with people who, once we get this stuff stacked out, they say, oh, this portfolio is not yielding at the rate that I sometimes feel like it is, so it's like, you gotta put the pencil to it, and the numbers don't lie. So, we get in there and